Marcus had nothing to his name, no home to go back to, no parents waiting for him, just the cold streets dressed in Christmas lights that didn't warm anyone who slept beneath them. Yet on a freezing December afternoon, with carols echoing faintly from a nearby store and fake snow stuck to broken sidewalks, he didn't hesitate when he saw two older boys shove a small girl into a brick wall behind a run-down convenience shop decorated with a flickering wreath. He moved on instinct, stepping between them and the girl, even though he was thin, hungry, and already bruised from life. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The bullies laughed, calling him trash, kicking him hard enough that he hit the icy ground. But Marcus dragged himself back up, arms shaking, body blocking the little girl who cried behind him. Her pink backpack ripped open, crayons and a small doll scattered like forgotten gifts. Snowflakes mixed with dust as fists slammed into his face and boots cracked against his ribs, each breath burning like frozen air in his lungs. Yet he stayed there, tasting blood, because in that moment, during a season meant for kindness, he refused to let cruelty win. The girl sobbed and begged them to stop, her voice small and scared, and Marcus didn't even know her name when he told them they'd have to go through him first. The alley felt like its own cold world, shadows stretching long in the early winter dusk, when one bully sneered and whispered that her father was someone dangerous, a biker everyone feared, but Marcus didn't care who her dad was, only that she was a child shaking in the cold. Punches kept coming, harder now, ribs aching, vision blurring, but every time he fell, he crawled back, planting himself like a shield, because he had learned long ago that sometimes the only gift you can give is your own pain, so someone else doesn't have to feel it. At last, a deep sound rolled through the city, not bells or music, but engines, low and heavy, like thunder wrapped in steel, growing louder with every second as Christmas lights trembled in shop windows. The bullies froze, fear flashing across their faces, and then they ran, boots slipping on icy pavement, leaving Marcus crumpled on the ground as the girl knelt beside him, crying and shaking, whispering his name like a prayer she didn't know how to finish. She told him her name was Lily, told him her dad would come, that he always did, and then she ran toward the street glowing with holiday decorations and the sound of approaching bikes. Marcus lay there alone, snow melting against his cheek, thinking maybe this was how his story ended, until headlights flooded the alley, bright as a sudden dawn, bikes lining up like soldiers, engines cutting out one by one until silence pressed down heavy and sharp. Men in leather stepped forward, boots crunching over glass and fallen crayons, and the one who led them all carried himself with a quiet power that made the air feel smaller. His eyes went from the broken doll to the bloodied boy on the ground, and something dark and furious settled there. This was Reaper, Lily's father, the man the streets whispered about, and when he spoke, his voice was low, steady, and dangerous, asking who had touched his girl. Marcus forced his eyes open and asked only one thing in return, whether Lily was safe, and that single question changed everything. Reaper knelt beside him, saw the truth written in bruises and broken skin, and understood that this homeless boy had stood alone in the cold, during Christmas of all times, to protect a child he didn't know. The engines outside hummed softly now, like a promise, as Reaper rose and told his men to take care of the boy, because anyone who showed that kind of courage, that kind of heart, especially on a day meant for hope, was no longer alone. And that night, beneath blinking Christmas lights and falling snow, Marcus found a family where he never expected one. For a brief second, something crossed Reaper's face, maybe surprise, maybe a memory stirred by the cold Christmas air drifting into the alley, and then it vanished as quickly as it came. He looked down at the broken boy on the ground and asked quietly if Marcus knew who the little girl was, and Marcus, licking his cracked lips, answered that she was just somebody's kid, which made Reaper's jaw tighten as he said a single heavy word, mine. The truth hit Marcus hard, sharper than any punch, because every story he had ever overheard about the Hells Angels and about Reaper himself flooded his mind all at once. And he wondered if standing up for Lily meant he had simply traded one beating for something far worse. Around them, engines ticked as they cooled, leather creaked, boots shifted on icy ground, and not one biker spoke, all of them watching, waiting as Christmas lights from the nearby street blinked faintly against brick walls. Reaper asked how old Marcus was, and when the boy croaked out that he was 12, a quiet curse slipped from one of the men, but Reaper kept studying him, asking where he was from, and Marcus answered with a weak, humorless cough that he was from everywhere and nowhere, which told Reaper all he needed to know when he glanced at the torn backpack, the thin wrists, the mismatched shoes. The alley felt frozen in time until Lily's voice suddenly cut through it, calling out for her dad as she rushed past the men, dropping to her knees beside Marcus without caring about the cold or the dirt, whispering that he had stayed just like he promised. She told her father how Marcus ran in without knowing her, how he stood there while they hit him, how he refused to move, and as she spoke, the silence deepened, snowflakes drifting down like quiet witnesses. Reaper straightened slowly, his eyes moving from his daughter's scraped knees to the blood on the wall, then back to Marcus, before calmly asking for the names of the boys, Cade and Milo, names that sounded small and weak compared to what they had done. With a simple nod, Reaper sent his men to find them, and the alley came alive with quiet motion as bikes were started and phones came out, a hunt beginning without raised voices or threats. When Reaper asked Marcus if he could stand, and the boy admitted he couldn't, one of the bikers carefully lifted him, and Marcus clenched his teeth as pain shot through him, surprised by how gentle the man was. Lily stayed close, clutching her doll like a Christmas gift she refused to lose, while fear and confusion twisted inside Marcus as he was carried toward the bikes, unsure if this meant safety or danger. The street beyond the alley glowed with holiday lights, people staring from sidewalks, some filming, others looking away, as the convoy pulled out, engines rumbling like distant thunder under carols drifting from shop doors. The ride blurred past, cold air biting at Marcus's face until darkness took him again, and when he woke briefly, it was to the smell of oil and smoke inside a rough brick building decorated not with tinsel, but with old photos and patched flags. Reaper sat at a scarred table, watching a grainy video on his phone of the alley, of Lily crying, of Marcus refusing to move, replaying it as if trying to understand why a boy with nothing would give everything for a stranger during a season meant for giving. When Ghost finally brought Marcus inside, laying him gently on a jacket near the table, Lily hovered nearby, asking if he would be okay, and Reaper, watching the slow rise and fall of Marcus's chest as wounds were clean and bandaged, answered that he was tougher than he looked, that he had already stood when most wouldn't. Outside, Christmas night settled over the city, cold and bright, while inside the clubhouse, a dangerous man silently decided that a homeless 12-year-old who had protected his daughter would not be left alone in the dark ever again. Reaper told Lily softly that she was not at fault, not the one who stood in front of the danger, and he rested a heavy, steady hand on her shoulder, making sure she heard him, until she blinked back fresh tears and nodded, the Christmas lights strung along the clubhouse walls reflecting in her eyes. Marcus shifted on the wooden table as Doc cleaned a cut on his cheek, a low groan slipping out of him before he could stop it. And Reaper leaned in, more thoughtful than angry now, saying that when the boy woke fully, they would talk because he needed to understand why a kid with no reason to care had stepped into a fight meant for grown men, why the world had let him fall through every crack, and what it meant now that a debt had been carved deep, like a mark in wood that could not be erased. Outside, engines echoed faintly in the cold Christmas night, and somewhere out there Cade was still free. But for now, Marcus drifted awake to the sound of quiet swearing and the buzz of a single light above him, his body screaming in pain as memories came back in pieces. The alley, the fear, Lily's voice, the snow, the roar of bikes. He tried to move and hissed as pain flared through his ribs and jaw, until a deep voice told him to take it easy, and he realized he was not in a shelter or on the street, but inside a place that smelled of oil, smoke, and old wood, decorated not with ornaments, but with flags, photos, and the low hum of men who watched without staring. Lily's voice came from his side, telling him she was there, telling him he scared her because he didn't wake up for a long time, and Marcus managed a weak smile just to ask if she was okay, which made her nod fast and say her dad found her. That word pulled his eyes toward Reaper, standing a few steps away, calm but heavy, like a storm holding itself back. Marcus asked why he was there, and Reaper answered plainly that a child should not bleed alone on the street, especially not at Christmas, and that walking away would have made him something worse than his reputation. Doc muttered while working, saying Marcus would hurt but live, and the word tonight caught Marcus's attention because he never thought past a single night. Lily blurted that Marcus had nowhere to go, and when Marcus said he would leave once he could walk, Reaper shut that down with a firm no, explaining that scared boys like Cade did stupid things and might try to come back for easier targets, and Marcus realized nobody had ever talked about protecting him before. When Reaper asked why he had done it, why he hadn't walked away, Marcus finally admitted that nobody had stepped in when it was him getting hurt last winter, right after his mother died, and he promised himself he would never be that person who watched and did nothing. The room went quiet, even the music dropping lower, as Doc finished wrapping his ribs and told him to rest, and Reaper asked his men if anyone thought the kid didn't deserve to stay. But no one spoke against it, especially not after hearing what he had done. So Reaper told Marcus he was staying, at least for now, and the word here landed heavier than any punch, because here meant warmth, walls, food, and faces that would know his name. Lily smiled brighter than the Christmas lights, whispering that she told him so, while Marcus thought about the cold places he used to sleep and said nothing. When Ghost returned with news that Milo had been found and was being brought in, the air shifted again, heavier this time, and when Milo was dragged into the room, shaking and small without his friends, Marcus forced himself upright despite the pain. Reaper questioned him calmly, made him face Lily's words and Marcus's bruises, and when Marcus was asked what should be done, he surprised everyone by saying he didn't want Milo broken, only changed because breaking people just made more cruelty. Reaper listened, really listened, and decided on punishment that forced work, responsibility, and shame instead of fists, warning Milo that the choice could change if he ever crossed the line again. When Milo was sent away, Reaper turned back to Marcus and told him he had a place now. Not as charity, but because he chose courage during a season meant for it. And as Christmas night settled outside, Marcus felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest too. Not just pain, but the quiet, steady feeling of belonging. And for the first time in a long while, he believed there would be a tomorrow.